with a sunshiny smile, heard the roar of a plane as it sailed through the sky. To a playmate she cried with a bright twinkling eye, my daddy rides that ship in the sky. Oh, my daddy rides that ship in the sky. My daddy rides that ship in the sky. Mama's not afraid and neither am I, 'cause my daddy rides that ship in the sky. Then we're all family under one sky, family under one sky, all family under one sky, family under one sky. Now I'll sing a line and you sing it back, okay? We're people, we're people, we're animals, we're flowers and birds in flight. I said we're people, we're animals, we're flowers and birds in flight. All together, and we're all family under one sky, we're family under one sky. In here, we're all family under one sky, family under one sky. We've got dark skin, we've got light skin, we've got straight hair and curly too. We speak English, we speak Spanish. We're different, but we're the same. Here you go, and we're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. We're a family under one sky. Not so famous because he can do so much being tiny, weaving this incredible web. It's like magic. And his name is Anansi the spider. There's loads of books and loads of tales about Anansi, so be sure and check some of them out at the library. This is one where Anansi is not so much a trickster as he can't control himself. They ever talk about self-control with you here at school? He has a problem with self-control.
Anansi, I have to go to the store and get some more spices. You continue doing your work, and when I get back, I'll put in the spices and we'll cook dinner and we'll have a wonderful meal. But Anansi, she said, whatever you do, don't go and touch those beans. They're very hot and you could burn yourself. What did I say, Anansi? He said, I won't touch
those. Himself standing right in front of that pot of beans. Well, she said, don't touch the beans. It won't hurt if I smell them. Took the top off. Oh, Anansi loved beans. He said, it won't hurt if I just take a taste. Grandma doesn't have to know. Sitting right there was her wooden spoon, and it looked kind of lonely, so Anansi picked it up. And he took a taste. He took it out of the bowl. He blew on it. It was good. Maybe just one more. Maybe another. I've had three. A fourth one's not going to make any difference. Well, Anansi got to thinking he'd like some more of that, and he wanted it to cool faster, so he took off his hat and he put the beans in the hat. Well, a moment later, there was some yelling out in the field, and some neighbors were yelling, "Get out of here, you nasty birds! Get out of here! Get away from Grandma's beans! Get away from here!" Well, the birds suddenly flew in the kitchen window where Anansi was, and the neighbors started pounding on the door. They said, "Anansi, let us in, let us get those birds, they're eating Grandma's beans." They were pounding and pounding, and Anansi thought, what am I going to do with this hat full of beans? I don't want them to see me with this hat full of beans. Well, I'll bet you can predict what Anansi did, can't you? He took that hat full of beans, which had not had time to cool, and put it on his head and opened the door. There stood Anansi with that hat full of hot beans on his head. And the neighbors came in and they chased the birds out of there and they started to leave. And there was Anansi. He was standing there with sweat dripping down his face, looking like this. They said, Anansi, what happened? Did those birds hurt you? He said, no, I've just been sweating a lot. I've been working all morning. You can go now, I'm okay. But they were concerned. They said, Anansi, you're sure they didn't hurt you? Anansi was starting to cry. Anansi couldn't stand still. He started shaking his hat to get the beans to move around and going back on one foot and then the other. They said, Anansi, that's a wonderful dance. What do you call that? He said, it's the hat-shaking dance. It's the hat-shaking dance.
Oh, can you do that with me? Shake your hat. Oh!
The banjo came to this country from Africa. When black people came to this country, they brought a little banjo with them. There are still, in Africa, there's about 60 different instruments that resemble the banjo, that have a round head with a skin over it usually, and a neck with some strings on it. But now the banjo is used a lot by all kinds of people who like to play mountain music and bluegrass. Now here's an old mountain song, and it's real easy to sing. Wish I was a mole in the ground. Oh, I wish I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root that mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. Can you try that, Lee? I wish I was a mole in the ground. Sing it again. Oh, I wish I was a mole in the ground. You sing great. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root that mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. You can make up a verse to this song. All you need is an animal and a place that that animal is. Maybe what it does. Who's got an idea for an animal? Okay? Ooh. How about if I was a lion in the den? What would I do? What would I do if I was a lion in the den?
Hunt for food. I'll bring the zebra in.
I'd what?
I'd bring a zebra in.
Bring a zebra in. Well, the lion's got to eat, and that rhymes. He's got a good sense of rhyme. Let's do that one. I say go with that one. I wish I was a lion in the den. Oh, I wish I was a lion in the den. If I was a lion in the den, I'd bring a zebra in. And I wish I was a lion in the den. Let's try one more. Anybody else got it?
I was out in the swamp and I was trapped all the day. I come back into the camp and I say to my wife, "What you have fixed to eat? I am very hungry." She say, "Not much, vieux, not much." I pick up a few shrimp and a crab, and with them I make a gumbo. A gumbo is a soup. "Ah, chérie," I say, "a gumbo is very little for a man fatigued like me, a man tired like me. Why you not kill a chicken?" She said, "We only have one chicken left, and she lay an egg every day. It would be a mortal sin to kill a beast like that." Just then, I hear a out in the backyard. I throw open the door, I look out, and there is a rat de bois, and got our last hen by the neck. I run out in the yard, I pick up a stick, I give him a grand coup de bâton. I put his feet in the air. I say to my wife, look, the bon Dieu is bon, the good Lord is good. Now we're gonna have meat to eat. So, I take the hide over to Zebby. He the fur trader in the next camp. He gonna take that hide and he gonna sell it. He take that hide and he give me a bottle of wine for trade. My wife, she fix up a little bread. She fix up a stew. And everything come good. A little while later, I open the oven door to see how everything is going. Now maybe you not believe this, but I open that oven and there is the rat de bois. He's standing up in the pan. He had eat the potatoes. He had drink the grease. He come running out the door. He run between my wife's legs, knock over the bread, knock over the wine. He go running out through the door. He grab that hand and he go running off. And that's not all. That night, he go back into Zebby's camp. He take the hide off of the stretching board and he put it back on. Now that's something, huh? And while he was there, he ate up the stew, and he went back to Zebby, who had his hide, and he took that hide off of the stretching board, he put it back on, and he ran off. Now, could a possum really do that? No, it's an exaggeration, but it's based on something true, which is that a possum plays dead.
Now, we all know about recycling, maybe, how you use things in new ways, okay? Well, in the old days, when you got these big old holes in your blue jeans, like he's got, and your mama said, no more wearing those blue jeans, she didn't just throw those blue jeans out. She took the blue jeans and she cut out squares and shapes out of the good part of the blue jeans. She did that with all the leftovers for the clothes, and then when she got a nice big pile, she'd say, it's time to make a patchwork quilt. And she'd sew those patches together and she'd make something new out of those old things. Now, here are the motions. I want you to put on a pair of glasses for your grandma, because you know our eyes get old. On my grandma's, and probably the first place you need a patch is right here, because you're sitting on it all the time. So for patch, I want you to kind of hit your bottom. Patchwork, and for quilt, I want you to pretend you've got a needle and you're sewing, okay? On the grandma's patchwork quilt, let me see it. Squares of corduroy and silk, red and green and blue, and yellow too. On the grandma's patchwork quilt. I was singing with some kids back in a little community center way back in the mountains, and it rained and poured, and when I went to drive out of there, I got to that valley, and the water was about this deep. I couldn't get through it. I was water-bound. Can you sing that with me?
Yeah.
Water-bound and it can't get home. Water-bound and it can't get home. Water-bound and it can't get home. Down in North Carolina. The song is called Mi Casa es Su Casa. What does that mean? Who can tell me what that means? What does that mean? My house is your house. That's right. It's a way of welcoming somebody. It's like saying, make yourself at home. Feel like you're at home. My house is your house. Now, in this song, the woman who wrote it, Michelle Valerie, is kind of telling about her adventures when she traveled throughout Latin America. And she found that every place she went, the people were so nice to her. And most of them were poor people. They were so nice to her, she wanted to write a song about her. But because she was writing for kids, she thought it'd be fun to make it animals instead of people who were inviting her in. The first animal who invites her in is an anaconda. She's floating down the Amazon River. Now really, you wouldn't want an anaconda to invite you home. Not a real anaconda. But this is a pretend song, okay? And then she's hiking in the Andes Mountains with a Quechua guide. That's a Quechua Indian. They lived there a long time before the Spanish ever came over with a Quechua guide. And there was an Inca ruin. That's the old city of Machu Picchu, okay, on the mountainside. And there was a llama or a llama right there, big fuzzy. Casa es su casa, help me whenever you are near. Mi casa es su casa, sit down and rest right here. Well, I was floating in a boat down the Amazon, looking in the water at the setting sun. Suddenly an anaconda in a tree hung way over upside down in front of me and said, Mi casa es su casa, whenever you are near. Mi casa es su casa, sit down and rest right here. Well, I was hiking in the Andes with a Quechua guide. It was an Inca ruin on the mountainside, and standing in the shadow of a temple wall, there was a friendly llama. She was 8 feet
and she said, Mi casa es su casa, whenever you are near. Mi casa es su casa.
The Irish eat lots of potatoes, and in the old days they used to really depend on those potatoes. And this is a story about Jamie O'Rourke and the big potato. Jamie O'Rourke was the laziest man in Ireland. He would do anything to keep from working. He would sit around all day, and his wife Eileen would say, Jamie O'Rourke, we'll have nothing to eat this winter if you don't get up and pick out the praties.
To himself, he says, with Eileen sick in bed, there'll be no praties. With no praties, there'll be no food. With no food, I'll starve to death. There's no telling how soon death will be knocking at my door. I'd best go and confess my sins to Father O'Malley so that I can go to heaven when I die. And so in the middle of the night, Jamie O'Rourke got up out of bed and started down the hill to the church. Well, about halfway down the hill, he heard a little singing and tapping. He come up nice and close, and he pulled back the ferns. And there, sitting in the middle of the moonlight, was a leprechaun. Well, Jamie knew just what to do. He grabbed that fella by the coattails and held him up in the air. Let me go! Let me go! Said the little fella. Not on your life, said Jamie. Not until you take me to your pot of gold. Oh, Mr. Martin, man, he says, I'm just starting out in the trade and I've only got 2 pieces of gold. Won't you take a wish instead? A wish? And what would I be wishing for, says Jamie, me whose wife is sick in bed and can't get up and I'm about to starve to death. Well, when Jamie O'Rourke got home and told Eileen what he had done, she says, Jamie O'Rourke, you're not only the laziest man in Ireland, but you're a fool as well.
What are you gonna do with this so-called magic potato seed? You'll see, says Jamie. I'll plant it, and you'll see. She did see, for in a few weeks, up out of the ground came an enormous potato. 150 years ago in Ireland, the potatoes got a disease called the blight. It came across the ocean on the ships, and all their potatoes turned bad. You couldn't eat them.
It spread like wildfire across the Irish countryside. If you read Norrie Ryan's song by Patricia Riley Giff, as in many cases with a historical novel, you kind of get an inside feel for it. She discovers it one day when she hears this scream across the fields, and then she smells this stench coming toward her. The very next day, she discovers it in her own garden. When she walks through the garden, this brown ooze comes out on her skirt.
And after a while, what most of them had to do, because they were starving to death, is go to America. What made it worse was that the English people in the country next door owned almost all the homes, and when they couldn't earn any money, they were kicking them out of the homes. So they didn't have any home, they didn't have any food, and things got worse and worse. And so what 1 million of them did was they boarded a ship and they came to the United States. It was not a comfortable ride on that ship. They were stuck way down below, had a miserable time. Finally, they arrived in the United States and they looked for work, and what many of them did for work was they helped to build the railroads which were coming across the United States at that time.
And they had a work song that they loved to sing called Paddy on the Railroad. It's got a great chorus. In 1841, I put me corduroy breeches on. I put me corduroy breeches on to work upon the railway. Fill-a-me-oorie-oorie-ay, fill-a-me-oorie-oorie-ay, fill-a-me-oorie-oorie-ay.
through the mountain, what they would do is they would have a drill, and John Henry would hit that drill, and then the shaker would twist it so it dug into the rock. He'd hit it again, they'd twist it again, hit it, twist it, till they had a big enough place where they could put a stick of dynamite, and then they would blow up a little more of the rock and start all over again. The owner of the company brought a steam drill around. These were real machines that they invented to do the work, and they said it could do the work of 10 men. Well, if it could do the work of 10 men, then 9 of those men would be out of a job. So the legend says that John Henry raced that steam drill to see who could go further through the mountain in the same amount of time. Well, the captain he said to John Henry, you know, bring me a steam drill around. I'm gonna bring that steam drill out on the job. Walk that old steam drill on down, Lord. Walk that old steam drill on down. Well, John Henry said to the captain, he said, a man ain't nothing but a man. Before I let your old steam drill beat me down, you know I die with a hammer in my hand, Lord, Lord. I die with a hammer in my hand.
Okay? Now, most mosques, the equivalent of a church, don't look like that. That's a big and beautiful one in the capital of Turkey, Istanbul. And it just happens that the first story I'm going to tell you comes from that country of Turkey. It's one of many, many stories told about a man who really lived, whose name was Nasruddin. Hoja wasn't really his last name. Hoja means teacher. He was considered a teacher, but he taught in a very odd way. Many of the stories that people have been telling ever since show him sometimes acting very foolish, and other times he acts very wise. And sometimes there's kind of a mix of the two. One time, the Hoja was invited to a banquet at the home of the Mukhtar, a very important man in his village. Now, the Hoja was considered a wise man, Nasruddin, in his village. And he loved to eat. So being invited to a banquet was perfect. All day long as he was working in the garden, he was thinking, all that delicious food, as I'm eating that food, people will be asking my opinion about all kinds of interesting things. It will be great. All day long he was thinking about that as he was working in the garden, and he was thinking so hard that he didn't pay attention to the time. And he discovered when he had finished and he went home that if he wanted to bathe and he wanted to dress up in his fine clothes, he was going to be late for the banquet. He didn't want to do that. So he went on to the banquet in his work clothes, with dirt on his clothes and dirt on his hands, dirt on his face. And when he walked into the banquet, even though he was sure that the Mukhtar recognized him, the Mukhtar didn't pay him any attention. In fact, nobody did. And they seated him at the end of a long table in the back of the hall. And when the food finally came down to his end of the table, there was nothing left. So the Hoja, with his stomach empty and his feelings hurt, slipped out of the banquet and he went back home. When he got home, he bathed himself completely, and then he put on his finest clothes. He put on an elegant shirt and baggy pants and a great big turban, and on top of it all, he put on his new fur coat. Well, this time, when he got to the banquet, the Mukhtar rose to meet him. And the servant took him and seated him right there beside the Mukhtar in the place of honor. The servants brought him tray after tray of delicious food, and he would take the foods and people were asking him questions, but as he took the food, he didn't eat it. He started stuffing it into the pockets of his coat. And when he ran out of room in the pockets, he started rubbing it into his shirt. He was rubbing it all over his shirt, and the kids thought it was funny, you know. Here he was, the wise man in town, he was rubbing food in his shirt. But the Mukhtar was kind of embarrassed, and he watched him for a while, and finally he said, Hoja, he said, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? No, said the Hoja, I haven't lost my mind. I'm just trying to teach you a little lesson. You see, when I came here earlier dressed in my work clothes, you barely acknowledged me and you seated me in a corner way back in the corner of the hall where there was no food left for me and really no one to talk to. When I came back dressed in these elegant clothes, you treated me as the guest of honor. Well, I haven't changed. I'm the same person who came here before. It's only my clothes that have changed. So, it must be my clothes that you're honoring. Out of respect, I'm feeding them first. Eat my clothes, he said. You are the guest of honor. And with that, he stood up and he left the hall.
It's not important what a person looks like on the outside, it's the person inside.
If we could consider each other a neighbor, a sister, or brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh yes, it could be a wonderful world.
If each little kid could have fresh milk each day, if all working folks had enough time to play, if each homeless town had a good place to stay, it could be a wonderful world. Oh yes, it could be a wonderful world.
If we could consider each other a neighbor, a sister, or brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh yes, it could be a wonderful world.